video will cover a quick review of a practice exam, TSI, and I believe this exam has how many questions? Can you guys see on your last page? 15. Oh, it's right there, actually. So you know that the TSI will have 20, and then if you pass, then you will just get 20. If in the event that you don't pass, then you will get 40, an extra 40. So let's try to review here. So if I can have one of you please, well, I'll read this one because it's not too long. So we have the first question. Well, there's one thing I want to mention before we move on. What I noticed that they added on the TSI is that there is a button for a calculator. And then I think there's another one that has like a graph or something like that. Do you guys remember seeing it on your TSI? So there are two buttons. So whenever those buttons are available for you, just use them. Take advantage of them, okay? Don't worry about Ms. Evans saying we could use a calculator. If they are there, it's because College Board considers that you could use the calculator there, so use them. Okay, is that clear? All right. So going back to the first question, we have if we have the equation 3t minus 7 is equal to 5t, then what is 6t? Right there. That is our question. And so what we need to do is, first of all, solve for t. So I'm going to keep my t's on the right side, because positive 3t turns into negative 3t on the other side. And here we have negative 7. 5t minus 3t is 2t equals negative 7. So now to solve for t, we know that the 2 is multiplying t, so what we got to do is divide. So negative 7 over 2. However, that's not the answer to the question, because the question is, what is 6 times t? So what we need to do here is multiply 6 over 1 times the value of t, which we obtained here, which is negative 7 halves. And so that will give us negative 42, because we multiply straight across, over 2, which is negative 21. And so the answer will be C. Okay, so just a quick review on how we did it. We took the first equation that was here. We solved for t. Right here, we took the positive 3t to the other side, so that's why it was negative. Then we combined like terms, so we got 2t is equal to negative 7, and then we divided by 2, so we got negative 7 halves. But the question was, what is 6 times t? So that's why we multiplied negative 7 halves times 6, and we obtained negative 21. Okay? It's very likely that you get a question like that. So let's move on to the next one. So we have here a little bit of variation, and that's why we cover that, like barely got to cover it, right? Last week. So we have two variables, x and y, and they are directly proportional. So what we have is the following. Y is equal to a constant, let's name it k, times x. That's what direct variation means. Remember, it's like a linear function. And so right here we have some information given to us. Y is 2 when x is 3. So since that is the case, we're going to use the fact that x is 3 and y is 2 to find the value of k. So we substitute the y with a 2 and the x with a 3. And so k will equal to 2 divided by 3. That is our constant. Now that we have that, we look at the question, and this is exactly like the ones we did last week. So what is the value of y when x equals 9? So now this is asking us, what is y going to equal to when x is equal to 9? So to find that, we have to use our model that will come from here. But now instead of k, we're going to use the value that we found here, the 2/3. So our model becomes y is equal to 2/3 times x. And so to answer this question here, we need to substitute x with a 9. So that will be 2/3 times 9/1. And here we multiply straight across. So that will be 2 times 9, that's 18. 3 times 1 is 3. And 18 over 3 is 6. And so the answer is B. So let's do a quick recap. So we started with what we knew. Right here, y is 2, x is 3, and we know it's direct variation, so that's why we have to use this one. If the word had been inverse variation, instead of using k times x, what would you use? K over x, k divided by x. Yes. So that is direct variation. So we use that to find k. We substitute x with a 3, y with a 2, like we did here, and then we solve for k. After that, we put k in our model, and then we can answer the question. If x is 9, what is y going to equal to? All right, do we have any questions? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Oops. For the next one, we're going to need that graph. Okay, so in the xy plane above, point C has coordinates 6, 9. This point right here. 6, 9. Which of the following is an equation of the line that contains points O and C? So point O right here, if you notice, is right at the intersection of xy axis. So it is at the origin, and the coordinates are 0, 0. Now this is one of the formulas that you must know for this test. How to find slope and how to find the equation of a linear function. So to find slope, we will need to get the difference of the y's and divide it by the difference of the x's. And remember, it is the definition of slope is the rise over run, so that's why the y's always go on top. So this one is pretty easy. We could say the y goes first, 9 minus the y value from this point, which is 0, over 6, which is the x sub 2, minus the other x, which is 0. So in this case, we just get 9 over 6, and if we simplify it, both can be divided by 3, so we will get 3 halves. That is the slope. Now, once you have the slope, you need the equation, the formula for the equation of the line. And so that will be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So those two formulas you must memorize. It is very likely that you will have a problem with that. So we already know the slope, and we also know two of the points. We have a point here, and we have a point here. And to use this formula, you could use either point. Which one is easier? 0, 0. Yes, and you could use it. There's nothing wrong with that. So y minus 0. By the way, the only variables that will get replaced with the coordinates of the point will be y sub 1 and x sub 1. Okay, so in this case, you guys told me you want to use 0, 0. So y minus 0 is equal, what is m equal to? 3 over 2, and then x minus, what is x sub 1? 0. So right here, y minus 0 is just y, and here x minus 0 is just x, so we will have 2/3 times x. So, oops, 3 halves, not 2/3, 3 halves times x. So that is the equation. And we could see it is the last one, right? D. Do we have a question there? Any questions with that? So please, guys, those two formulas, very important that you know. Okay, so let's move on to number 4. There are 3x minus 2 trees planted in each row of a rectangular parcel of land, and there are a total of 24x minus 16 trees planted in the parcel. How many rows of trees are there in the parcel? Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay, so So picturing this, we have rows, right? We don't know how many rows, but we know that each row will have 3x minus 2. Consider that this quantity here is going to represent a number, okay? So I know it's kind of hard to say 3x minus 2 trees, but that's going to be a number, okay? Now, what we need to know is how many rows are here. Do we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, or do we have 5, or do we have 6, or do we have less? So we know that the total is 24x minus 16. So what we're going to do here is divide the total by the number of trees in each row. Hold on, this looks a little ugly. So it will be 24x minus 16 divided by 3x minus 2. Now, we could do long division, but we could also factor, right? What can we factor out from top, from the numerator? Both numbers are divisible by 2, by 4, but you said 8. So let's see if that will work. If we factor out an 8 from here, 24x divided by 8 will be 3x. Negative 16 divided by 8 is negative 2. So now if you notice, we have 3x on top, 3x on the bottom, and because they are identical factors, we could cancel them out because they equal to 1. So then how many rows do we have? 8 rows. Let's see if I guess correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? All right, so let's move on to number 5. I was going to do 9, but let's go in order. Could someone read that problem for me, please? Yes. 5, sorry.
A group of 18 people organized to make sandwiches for lunch. Each person in the group had either 1 soup or 1 sandwich. Sandwiches cost $7 with 75 cents each, and the soups cost $4.50 each. If the total cost of all 18 lunches was $113.50, how many sandwiches were ordered?
Okay. So what it seems to me here is that we're going to have a system of equations. How do I know that? Because there are 2 items. How many sandwiches? And then they're mentioning something else. What is the other item? Soup, right? Soup, sandwiches. And even though it's not asking us how many soups and how many sandwiches we'll order, the fact that the number of soups is embedded into the problem, that tells me it will be 2 unknowns, the number of soups, the number of sandwiches, and that will require 2 equations. Okay? So we have a group of 18 people, and they ordered soup and sandwiches. Each person in the group had either 1 soup or 1 sandwich. Ah, interesting. The sandwiches cost $7.75. So if we look at the question, it says how many sandwiches, right? So what I'm going to do is declare my variables. So I'm going to say that x will represent the number of sandwiches. And I'm going to say that y will represent the number of soups. Now, if we add the number of sandwiches and the number of soups, how many are there? How many people were eating? 18. 18 people. Now, 1 equation is not enough to solve for 2 variables. We need another one. So let's make another. The first one is about the quantity. And the second one is going to be about the total price. So we know the total price already. What is the total price for the milk? Or the check? 113.50, right? Now let's see. The price of the sandwiches is $7.75. So $7.75 times x. X is the number of sandwiches. plus the price of the soup, which is $4.50. So $4.50 times y. That right there gives us our two equations. Now, since I'm running out of room, I'm going to use the space here, but then I'm going to erase it, okay? So make sure you copy it somewhere else. Just make some room for yourself. So we have the two equations. We have equation 1, which is x plus y is equal to 18. And yes, we did cover this in class. And we have equation 2, which is 7.75x plus 4.50y is equal to 113.50. So I could do two things. I could use elimination or I can use substitution. I wouldn't recommend that you graph it because you have decimals and you're not going to have graphing paper. You could do a matrix, but again, you have decimals, so that might be a little overwhelming. What I would suggest you do here is substitution. Why? Because the coefficient of the x and the y is a 1. So it's fairly easy to solve for the other. So I'm going to do first step, solve for y in equation 1. So I'm going to say y equals negative x plus 18. Are we okay with that? I just took this positive x across. Instead of adding, now it is subtract. Now once we have that, we're going to substitute this expression in equation 2. So instead of the y that you guys see here, we're going to substitute that with this whole expression. Okay, so it's going to be, I'm going for this one. So 7.75x plus 450 times y, and remember y, we're doing negative x plus 18, is equal to 113.50, or I'm going to say 0.5 because I'm running out of room. All right, so 7.75x plus, right here I need to distribute, so 450 times negative x, so that will be minus so 7.75x minus 450x, and can someone please multiply 450 times 18? Thank you, Samantha, and that will be plus. Okay, and we still have this 113.5 here. Okay, how can I solve for x, guys? What can I do on the left side?
You can combine x.
Combine? So 775 minus 450, that would be what? 325? Yes? 325x. And what I'm going to do is, I have 113.5 on the right. I'm going to take this positive 81 and make it minus 81 on the right side. So Samantha, can you please subtract that? 113.5 minus 81. Oh, minus, not plus.
Did I write plus?
Yes, you did. 32.5, and then here we have 3.25x. So to solve for x, this is pretty easy. We have 32.5 divided by 3.25. So what is that going to be? I'm going to take a guess, and then we'll have Samantha check. It is 10. Now, what did we say x represented?
Sandwiches.
What about the sandwiches? The bread of the sandwiches? The number of sandwiches. So they sold 10 sandwiches. Was that the question though? Yes. How many sandwiches? What if the question is, how many soups? 8. 8. That's pretty easy, right? Because there were only 18 meals sold. But if it wasn't as easy, what you will do is just substitute the whatever you got for one into one equation and then solve for the other one. Okay? So make sure that you guys read those questions very well and you understand what are they asking you to do. Okay. Next question, number 6. Which of the following equations has both 1 and -3 as solutions? There's so many ways you can solve this. Now raise your hand if you consider yourself really good at factoring. No one? Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you're not good at factoring, you could substitute that for the x in each equation and see if you get 0.
Is the answer B?
I don't know.
I think so.
And then, but then, you still have to do it with -3. Substitute -3 and see which one gives you 0. That's like your last resort. Okay, you use back substitution, which is a valid testing technique. There's nothing wrong. However, if you want to factor it, the first one is going to be x plus minus 3 and 1. The second one, x plus minus 3, 1. The third one,
Oh, no, that's what I know.
and the fourth one. Okay, so now remember that when you have factors, you make them all equal to 0. By the zero factor property, you could take each factor equal to 0, and that's how you will find the solution. Or what is another name we have for solutions? Roots. What's another one? Zeros. And graphically, if they are real zeros, they will look like what type of intercepts? X-Intercepts. If they are real zeros, right? Not imaginary ones. X-Intercepts. Okay, so now from here, we can take each factor and equal it to 0 and then solve for x. So just by looking at the factors, you know that if I was to take x plus 3 equal it to 0, then x will equal what? -3. And that's what we need, right? -3. So far, this one will work, and this one. But now we need the other 0 to be +1. So what factor do I need to make that happen? X minus 1. So x minus 1 equals 0. So therefore, x equals +1. And so that one will be here. So that's the correct answer. And I bet you if you were to substitute the 1 and the -3 into it, you will get a value of 0. Let me show you quickly what I mean by that back substitution. Okay? So we already know what the answer is, so this will make it a little easier. So if I'm here, I'm looking at the answer, okay? So 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 3, is it equal to 0? So this is 1 plus 2 minus 3. Yes, it is, right? 1 and 2 is 3, minus 3, 0. Now we do the same with the -3. So it will be -3 in parentheses squared plus 2 times -3. I'm substituting 2 here and here, okay? Minus 3, is that equal to 0? So this will be 9 minus 6 minus 3. And so yes, because this is -9. So 9 minus 9, 0.
I forgot to substitute that.
So remember, -3 in parentheses, because once you square it, it will be positive, okay? So keep that in mind, please. So yes, that's two ways to find the answer. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. In the xy plane, what is the y-intercept of the graph of the equation y equals blah, 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 right here. So if it is the y-intercept, if it is a point on the y-axis, what is the x-coordinate by default?
Well,
What?
wait, no, sorry.
If it is on the x-axis, any point that I just trace on the, I'm sorry, on the y-axis, what is the x-coordinate?
Zero.
Zero. So by default, anytime that we're asked about find the y-intercept, we let y equal, sorry, x equals 0. So it will be like the other letter, x equals 0. And if we were asked to find the x-intercept, we let y equals 0. Okay, so now, to find the y-coordinate of the x-intercept, we take the equation, and we're going to substitute anywhere where there was an x, we're going to substitute that with 0. So 0 plus 3 and 0 minus 4. Then before we multiply anything, we're going to do what's inside the parentheses. So 0 plus 3 is 3. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So now what is 2 times 3? 6 times negative 4? Negative 24. That is the y-intercept. What if the question was, find the x-intercepts, and they give you the problem in factor form? It's already in factor form. All you got to do to find the x-intercepts is do the same thing that we did here the first time. Use the zero factor property. So the question was, if the question was find the x-intercepts, we take the factor, equal it to 0, and then solve for x. So the x-intercept intercepts points will be negative 3, 0, and 4, 0. All right? Okay. Next problem, number 8. It says factor. Okay? And this one here is a difference of squares. You might be telling me, well, there's a 4, not a 2. But there's no problem because the difference of squares, it just means that you could take a square root. Remember, the index is a 2. So when you take roots, the index becomes the denominator, right? So what is 4 divided by 2? 2. So that will just be 2 squared. So when I start factoring this problem here, first, I will factor it as the difference of 2 squares. So the square root of x to the 4 is x squared. The square root of 1 is 1. And of course, we make one positive, one negative. But then what happens? Right here, this one is another difference of squares. So we can keep factoring it. So far, I can say I still need to keep this one, x squared plus 1. And then I'm going to take this one here and break it into two binomials. X1, 1 plus minus. So you factor difference of squares twice. Where is it? 8, I think it's 8. Yes, it is 8. It's just the exponents a little off, but it should be good. It's 8. Okay, so let's move on to number 9. Now, just quickly, if you happen to have a difference of squares, let's say that you have x squared, and then you have a 5 here, and then you have a 75, something like that. You might think, well, I got I wish that 5 wasn't there and that 75 was not a 75 but a 25. Well, guess what? You can make that happen. Because you can factor out a 5 and make x squared minus 25. And then what would you do? That's a difference of squares. You see? Okay. So let's move on to number 9. Okay, so we have here some rules with exponents. If you notice, this 3 outside the parentheses is going to affect every single factor inside. So when I say factor, I mean the 3, the x squared, and the y cubed. So I'm going to write it in this way, 3 to the power 3. And then we have x squared to the power 3. And then we're going to have y cubed to the power 3. So we have a 3, a 3, and a 3. And that 3 came from here, the one that was outside the parentheses. Now, when we do this, the rule is that right there, we're going to multiply the exponents, right? So we're going to have 3 to the power 3. That will be 3 times 3 times 3. That's 27. And then here we will have x to the power 6, y to the power 9. Like that. So the answer will be D. Okay, now I'm going to erase all this stuff. Let's move on to problem 9. And this is one of those things that we didn't get to cover in detail as a function because I had to make a decision. Do I want to cover rationals or radicals? And to me, rationals are more important. So right here what we do, I call it radical because it has that root, right? The radical sign. So hopefully you get one that is not too difficult. But if you get one that is too difficult, hopefully you got all the other questions right. So what I need to do here, solve for x, you notice. And so we start with that. And only because the square root is only on one side, and there's no other number being added or subtracted to the left side, I can do the following. How do we undo a square root? Square. And so that's what we're going to do. And when we do that, the square will cancel the square root, so we'll get 5 minus x. 4 squared will be 16. So now to solve for x, I'm going to make the decision to take my x to the right side just so that it becomes positive. So this positive 16 will be moved to the left, so it's minus 16, and the right side will have positive x. So positive x is equal to negative 11. And so the answer for that question will be B. Now, what if you get an equation that you have no clue how to solve? Back substitution. That's what you will do. So you take each number, you plug it in for x, and if you get a true statement, then that's the correct answer. Okay? But don't give up. Don't just guess. Don't skip it. Just do your best. Do back substitution. All right. Next one is a rational equation. So it might look a little intimidating at first, but you need to relax and just kind of think about, okay, what could I do? What is this x doing? Well, let me ask you something. Don't you wish you didn't have that x on the denominator? Isn't it bothering you? Like you don't know what to do? Well, get it out of there. That's all you got to do. What is the x doing right there in the denominator? Dividing. So if I take that across, it's going to do the inverse operation, right? And we all know what that is. What would it be? Multiplication, right? Multiplying, yes, and that's it. So then we have 20x. We take this positive x to the right side, so it becomes minus x. We have a negative 1 here. Combine like terms, 20x minus x is equal to 19x. And so right here we have a negative 1. And just to solve for x, what we need to do is take negative 1 and divide by 19. And that will be here. Okay, so moving on to number 12. Now, this is one of those formulas that you need to remember, okay? And that is the formula to find the vertex of a quadratic equation. It's very likely you're going to get asked that question. So the formula to find the vertex is, of course, if it's a vertex, it's a point. So it must have an x and a y coordinate, right? The first coordinate, the x coordinate, comes from here, negative b over 2a. B and a are just numbers. Now, if it's a function, for every x, there must be a y, correct? So what you do, once you find the x, you substitute that value into the equation to find the y coordinate. And the way we write it, it looks kind of weird and intimidating, but it's not a big deal. It's just numbers, okay? Instead of a and b, just picture numbers there. So we have here the problem. Who could read it for me, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Tony.
A ball was kicked into the air from a balcony 20 feet above the ground, and the ball is high above the ground in t seconds after the ball was kicked. Was ht equal 20 minus 16 squared?
T squared. The square should be there. It's just like a little
T
typo.
squared plus 32t. What was the maximum height in feet of the ball above the ground after it was kicked?
Okay. So we're talking about a ball that was kicked at 20 feet. Oh, okay, there was a balcony. I was like, wow. That's kind of hard, but it was from a balcony. Okay, so the balcony was 20 feet above ground. So the ball was kicked, and then it made a parabolic path. Okay, so the ball is going to have a maximum height at the vertex, but actually the height is going to be the y coordinate of the vertex, okay? And the x coordinate will be kind of like, well, actually here, not kind of, but it's going to be the time. So this is time horizontal, that's why you have t instead of x, and it says there time in seconds, I think. And the y-axis becomes the height. So when they ask us what is the maximum height, we're going for this part of the vertex, the y coordinate of the vertex, all right? So we do have the equation. It looks a little weird, so I'm going to rewrite it. H of t, instead of f of x or f of t, we're calling it h of t, because time is the independent variable. So h of t, I'm going to write the square term first, so negative 16 t squared plus 32t plus 20. That's our equation. Now, like I told you before, to find the vertex, we need a and we need b. A is the coefficient of the square term. Negative, don't forget it's negative 16. It has to be negative because the parabola is opening down. So A is negative 16, and B is the coefficient of the term to the first power, in this case t. So that's 32. All right, so we're going to use that formula of the vertex now that we know what A and B equal to. So negative B over 2A, that's what we need. That's the formula. You must remember that. Negative B over 2A. Okay, so that will be negative 32 over 2 times A. You notice A is negative, so it's going to be negative 16. So that will give me negative 32 over negative 32. And so that becomes 1. So now on this part of the vertex, after 1 second, the ball attained its maximum height. So now, what was the height? Well, what we need to do is substitute in this equation a 1 for t to see what was the height. So h of 1 will be negative 16 times 1 squared plus 32 times 1 plus 20. And so that will be 32 plus 20, that's 52, minus 16. Can you help me out, Samantha?
What is
52, 32 plus 20, that's 52, and then 52 minus 16. 36? So 36, right? So that means that, remember, we started at 20 because there was a balcony, so it kind of makes sense. The height here was 36 feet. So that was the maximum height, and then the ball came down. What if the question was, at what time did the ball touch the ground? That's a very common question. What would you do? Find the what?
Would it be the same?
No, it's not the same. If the question says at what time it touched the ground, I'm talking about this point right here. How do we call that point?
0.
It's one of the zeros. So then you will have to find the zeros, or the root, or the solutions of the equation.
just factor it out?
All right, so let's move on. You can factor it, or if you cannot factor, you could use the quadratic formula. So it will help you out if you also memorize that formula. Quadratic formula, negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And if you memorize that one, it's pretty easy to remember that the vertex actually comes from here. Like that. Negative b over 2a. Right? Okay, so let's move on to problem 13. Who would like to read it? Okay, thank you so much.
The yard behind Cindy's house is rectangular shape, has a perimeter of 70 feet. The length of L of the yard is 18 feet longer than the width of W of the yard. What is the area of the yard?
Okay, so we have a rectangular shaped yard where the perimeter is 72 feet, the length is L, let's call it L, and what else do we have? The width is W. I always do it, well, let's call this L and W. It doesn't really matter for this particular problem for our supply. Okay, W. So it's telling us that the perimeter, so this is the length, this is also the length, and if this is the width, this will also be the width, right? So we're talking about perimeter, that should be L plus W plus W, or simpler way, 2L plus 2W. Now, it says here that the perimeter is actually 72 feet. So I can substitute this variable P, capital P, with a 72. And then if you keep reading the problem, or you might have to read it again, I have to do that several times, it says here that the length of the yard is 18 feet longer than the width. Oh, so my drawing makes no sense. So don't go by my drawing. So what is longer, the width or the length? The length, right? So the length is 18 feet longer than the width. That means it's W plus 18. Okay, so now what is the area of the yard? Now how do we find the area of rectangles? Length times width. So that means that we need to find both quantities, right? We need to find what's L, and we need to find what is W. So since we already have here L equals W plus 18, what I'm going to do is substitute that, this quantity instead of L right here. So I take the equation 72 is equal to 2L plus 2W, and now I'm going to substitute L with that expression, because we know L, the length is 18 longer than the width. And now, since we have one equation with only one variable, which is W, we only need one equation to solve for W. So 72 equals, here I'm going to distribute, so that will be 2W plus 36 plus 2W. So how many W's do we have? 4 W's plus 36. And so to solve for W, it will be 4W is equal to 72 minus 36. So 72 minus 36 is equal to 36. Yes or no? Yes. So 36 equals 4W, and so to solve for W, that will be 36 divided by 4. And so 36 divided by 4 is 9, and so that will be the width. Now, if we know the width, it's pretty easy to figure out the length, right? Because we know that the length is 18 longer than the width. And we're saying that the width is 9, so 9 plus 18 is equal to 27. So the question here is find the area. We already established that the area is found by multiplying the length times the width. And so the area will be the length, which is 9, times the width, which is 27. Can you multiply that Samantha, please? Yes. 243. And do we have units? Yards, right? So 243 square yards, or yards, right here. Okay, moving on, because we're almost out of time. So we have here and I'm going to upload this video to YouTube in case you want to review one of the problems. So we have a table. The table shows the high temperature last Thursday for 5 cities, A through E. Can you just watch this and just go? Yes, go. But leave your stuff here. Hurry up, and then come back. So the table shows the high temperature last Thursday for 5 cities, A through E. If the median of the Thursday high temperatures for the cities was 81, which of the following could not have been the high temperature last Thursday for city A? Okay, that's a problem that I am going to have to read more than once. So what do we know about the median? It is 81, and we're missing one of them, right? Okay. And so the median is if you list your temperatures in order, starting from the smallest or the lowest, 62, and then I don't know what this one is, so I'm just going to skip it. So I'm going to say the next one will be 81, then the next one will be 87, and then we will have 93, and then we still have one that is, we don't know what it is, right? But the median, that means that it's in the middle. It's not the average, that's the mean. The mean is the average. That's when you add them and divide by how many you have. And the mode is the one that repeats the most. So right here, if 81 has to be in the middle, what that tells me is that will this temperature go on the left side of 62 or somewhere else?
It would be to the left of 81 either way.
To the left of 81, and we don't know if it could go here or here, right?
That doesn't work.
What is the question?
all you have to do is say it can't be 85. Because it can't go above 81.
Oh, okay. So then let's read the question again. Because I did not get that the first time. Which of the following could not have been the high temperature last Thursday for city A? Oh, right here, right? Okay. So our options are 85. Could it be 85? No, because 85 will be placed right here. And these are our only options. So it cannot be 85, but if you notice, that's actually the question. What it cannot be. So be careful with those. Like, and 75, it could be valid because it could have been here, right? 75. So this was the no, although that was the correct answer because the question was could not. 75 could have been, 65 could have been also, and 55 could have been also. Okay? All right, so moving on, this is the last one. So there are 20 children in the cast of a class play, and eight of the children are boys. Of the boys, 4 have a speaking part in the play. And of the girls, 8 do not have a speaking part in the play. So let's think about this. How many total students are participating in the play? 20. And if we have 8 boys, how many girls will we have? 12. And out of those 12 girls, 8 do not have a speaking part. So 4 have a speaking. Yes? She wasn't there. She wasn't there? Okay, so 4 speaking, 8 not speaking. So the question is, if a child from the cast of the play is chosen at random, what is the probability that the child has a speaking part? So let's see, probability that the child will be a speaker in the play. So we need to calculate the number of children who are speaking divided by the total number of children. And so if we count how many children are speaking, we have 4 girls and we have 4 boys. So 4 plus 4 is 8. And what is the total number of kids? Considering both girls and boys? 20. And then we reduce both numbers to be divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So that's the probability 2 kids. And that is the end of the problem. So I'm going to stop the video here. And what I would suggest is that you guys remember those formulas that I told you, review your factoring, and you might want to review the video I posted on probability, and then just get enough sleep and be ready for tomorrow or Thursday. At 8:30. Is it at 8:30? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for reminding us that, Samantha. So TSI 8:30, Tuesday or Thursday.